Good afternoon. Welcome to MOCA. I'm Bonnie Clearwater, the Director and Chief Curator, and I'm pleased to have you here this afternoon for a very special talk. We had a great opening here on Thursday night, and I hope you've all had a chance to see the exhibition. And hopefully, I think there was a lot of you that were here opening night where we had a fantastic performance as well. If you haven't seen the performance, I think it's going to be up on our website this week. We just launched a new website at mocanomi.org. So I welcome you to check it out because it's going to be very interactive with a lot of our videos and performances and lectures. So it's a great source to have. Today we're very pleased to have Ragnar Kjartansson, and he'll actually give us the correct pronunciation when he introduces himself. I became interested in Ragnar many years ago, and he actually was the youngest artist ever to represent Iceland at the Venice Biennale, and it happened to be the year that Iceland went broke. I don't know if the two had anything to do with each other, but he had this amazing space on the Grand Canal in Venice, and every day he went into this great space and painted painted from a model. He would paint every day several new works, or one new work?
It was one
painting every day for the entire length of the Venice Biennale. On my way to the opening of the Venice Biennale, it was announced that the gallery, Lauren Augustine, was picking him up for the gallery. And there was a work that I was very intrigued with that was actually going to be in an exhibition that was going to be at the museum here in the following December. And the work was called God. And on the plane, I call Roland Augustine of Lauren Augustine Gallery and leave a message on his cell phone, which was, "I want to buy God." And by the time I landed, I owned God. So it's a wonderful work, and I know a number of you have seen it. And it was really the beginning of our relationship with Ragnar. We've had some very funny communication that sort of got lost in translation. For many of you, you know that I am a scholar of Mark Rothko, and which Ragnar, when our discussion, I said I'm a Rothko scholar, and then last fall we were at a dinner and he said, "I've been wanting to talk to you because on the Rococo." And I said, "What?" And he said, "I want to talk to you. You're a Rococo specialist." I said, "No, I'm a Rothko specialist." But we had a great conversation that night all about religion in contemporary art, and I actually wrote a piece in Art in America on it. One of the reasons he was interested in the Rococo was that he was working on an amazing performance for the Performance Biennial in New York, Performa, called Bliss, and it was the last act of the last aria of the Marriage of Figaro, sung live in full costume and full set, non-stop for how many hours? 12 hours. It was one of the most beautiful things I have ever seen. I sat through 3 hours of it and only left because I had another appointment, but it was truly a blissful moment. When I knew that the Carnegie Museum in Pittsburgh was organizing an exhibition of Ragnar's films, we right away signed on to take the exhibition, which opened this week. So it is a great pleasure to be working with Ragnar. He's one of the most interesting, insightful, and exciting artists. And for our 15th anniversary dinner in February, we had commissioned him to do a new performance, which was really the star of the entire dinner. And we actually have the sponsors of that as well here with us today. Thanks again, Don and Jane, for your support of that performance. So it gives me great pleasure now to introduce Ragnar Kjartansson.
Hello. Yeah, thank you for coming. I'm going to I think I'll just start about telling you a little bit about it's almost like about the kind of back history of the pieces which are of the films which are being shown here in the exhibition. Firstly, here's when you walk in, there's this film which is called Satan is Real, and it's built on a song by the Louvin brothers, who are this great American gospel country duo of what are they called? Ira and the Louvin brothers. And they were a very interesting group. They did two records, which were, one of them was called Satan is Real, and the other one was called Tragic Songs of Life. And it's just, I think Tragic Songs of Life is the best album title ever. And on the cover there's just like a drawing of a woman crying. And so they were very obsessed with sin and redemption. And Ira, he was the older brother. He kind of wrote most of the song, but they're all kind of Christian, against being alcoholic, against being womanizing, and you know, being badass. But he was he was a very flaky Christian, and he died in a car crash, driving really fast, drunk, very young, and all those songs are, he's like obsessed with sadness and tragedy, and then the harmonies of the Louvin brothers they are like super duper influential on American music. So we start with this piece, Satan is Real. And it's like this thing with misunderstanding, which I often think is, it's like this when we are small and we hear a song and we hear some other lyric, and the lyric that is actually there. So I always heard this song, Satan is Real. So it goes like, Satan is real, working in spirit. But I heard it, Satan is real, working for me. And I thought it was like the most mind-blowing lyric ever. And then I just realized that, they did not write it. So I like, out of my misunderstanding, I wrote it. So the song is like this. Satan is real. He's working for me. Satan is real. He's working for me. Oh, Satan is real. He's working for me. And etc. etc. Like in the video, it's about an hour of this repeated, and I very much work with repetition, because repetition is just like it's a very I think it's a very kind of basic form of human expression, or try to get a message across. It's really like the essence of every religion, not its repetition, like prayers or mantras or rosary, or it's always just saying something again and again until it becomes totally profound. And with this work, I wanted to my mother is very religious, and I'm kind of raised very religious, and I was kind of intrigued, what would happen if I would sing this for an hour? Would I really get Satan on my side? And the weird thing happened. I buried myself in a public park in Reykjavik on a Sunday. I just had a friend there with a video camera, and then all these children started showing up with ice creams and just hanging around Faust, trying to get the devil to come to him. So, yeah. So here's the next piece. That is called Me and My Mother. And me and my mother, we have a very good. She's like I said, she's very religious, and she's an actress. Okay, so she's a total diva, and she really was, in the 50s and 60s, she was kind of like the Marilyn Monroe of Iceland. I'm not lying. Of Iceland, it's very small, I made, this was like my first piece. I can actually call a piece. I made it in art school. It's just my mother spitting on me, and it's shot just in a very similar style, like the early video works of video art history, just like putting a camera there and doing some action, and I had a eureka moment when I was in art school. There was this very good Dutch artist called Arnold Meek, who was coming as a visiting teacher in the Reykjavik Art Academy, and he just saw this piece and he was just, I'm so sorry, this is a horrible piece, it's really bad. Because you can really see that your mother is acting. She's just acting it out. It doesn't look truthful. It doesn't look like she's truthfully spitting on you. And so it was this weird conversation with an art teacher in art school about, what is acting, what is good acting. And kind of I realized that this is what I really want to work with, is the act, the expression when we act something out, pretend to be something. Because I think it's I think pretense is a very essential truth of our existence. And this constant obligation of being truthful, I just don't believe in that. And honesty, I think honesty is a very, very complicated thing. And also, like, being raised in the theater, there's always this weird mixture between life and theater with my parents. So I was always like, they always kept me in the dark in the theater just when they were rehearsing. So I just had to shut up and stay in the dark and watch them do the same scenes over and over again. And I also think that has a lot to do with the repetition in my work. This because I also remember being in the theater, just really loving it, but then they're always loving the rehearsals. There's a scene and a man comes into the door and says like, "Where have you been all day?" Okay, let's just try it again. "Where have you been all day?" Okay, one more time. "Where have you been all day?"
Looking at art.
Yeah. And then it's just looking at art. But then there's this thing that you know, this repetition, these fragile, these little moments of theater were really, you never knew what was going to happen next, what had happened. It was just a moment. It was like a painting. But then there came a production, like then there was some story, and then it was never as kind of fascinating as the little moment where you would imagine what had happened before and after. So then this piece with my mother, as you can see out there, it is now 3 pieces, and it's going to continue until you know, until one of us has to go. And yeah, so it's a nice family tradition. I totally recommend it. Just to your mother spit on your sons, and sons take your mother's spit. It's really good. It has helped the relationship a lot. And then there's another piece in the exhibition, which is called Song, and that piece is also a lot of my pieces sort of deal with my family, my personal existence, as I think many artists are working with, and I'm like lucky, like everybody in my family is a bit of an exhibitionist. So and then I have these 3 nieces, and it's really like, and because they sort of look the same, but they're not triplets. But so I've been working with them since they were just small. They did one endurance performance with me when one of them was just 7 years old. They'd see it just be like stuck in an endurance performance for a whole evening, for 5 hours. So I'm a bad uncle. And then this piece, which was it was commissioned for the exhibition at the Carnegie, and it very much was based on the space which is there. It's called the Hall of Sculptures. You can see it a little bit on the picture, but you see it better in the video. It's really like this, you know, neoclassical, golden age American, you know, Capitol Hill architecture of, you know, I think it's a replica of the Pantheon, done by Andrew Carnegie in marble. And I was kind of fascinated about you know, about doing something in that room, and then this piece sort of slowly came about. I was living in a hippie commune in Poland, like sleeping in a hammock, and I was with my guitar, sleeping in a hammock in a hippie commune. Really good situation. And then I started kind of writing a little song based on a poem by Allen Ginsberg, which is called Sun. And I think I'm just going to read the poem. It's a really great poem. Song. The weight of the world is love. Under the burden of solitude, under the burden of dissatisfaction, the weight we carry is love. Who can deny? In dreams it touches the body, in thoughts constructs a miracle. In imagination anguishes till born inhuman. Looks out of the heart, burning with purity, for the burden of life is love. But we carry the weight wearily, and so must rest in the arms of love at last. Must rest in the arms of love. No rest without love, no sleep without dreams of love. Be mad or chilled, obsessed with angels or machines, the final wish is love. Cannot be bitter, cannot deny, cannot withhold if denied. The weight is too heavy. One must give for no return, a thought is given, in solitude, in all the excellence of its excess. The warm bodies shine together in the darkness, the hand moves to the center of the flesh, the skin trembles in happiness, and the soul comes joyful to the eye. Yes, yes, that's what I wanted. I always wanted. I always wanted to return to the body where I was born. And so, there in the Hippie Commune, I wrote a little song which was based on what I remembered from the poem. No rest without sleep, no sleep without dreams of love, of love, of love. Drums, drums, the weight of the world, the weight of the world, the weight of the world is love unsatisfied, unfulfilled. The weight we carry is love. So as you can hear, it's like it's totally like a remix of the poem. And I thought it was a good idea to get my nieces into the project, because they all have amazing voices, and I was sort of interested in this. I've always been very, very inspired by feminist art, and just the fact that it's like the biggest explosion in art history. I think in 100 years, like that's going to be the most important thing, not like pop art or anything like that. But the feminist art movement just suddenly gave just a voice to the half of humanity, and of course it starts in political feminism, and yeah, feminism has always been very close to my heart. And so like where I come from, it's a very feminist country, Iceland. Like our prime minister is a lesbian, and it's kind of like and it's number 1 in women's rights. That's the only reason I'm proud of Iceland. That's like we're number 1 in politics, in power, in business, etc. of women. So, and then I sort of wanted to make a piece which was totally feminine and kind of anti kind of strong feminist statement. It was just really like this kind of male idea of the vague female yearning love element. So this video is really like beautiful girls singing about love and satin, and musically I was very inspired to take this song and turn it into like church music, like with because I've always been very fascinated with Hildegard von Bingen, who was this nun in Frankfurt, who is like the only woman composer in history until the late 19th century. And if you've heard the piece, then you can really hear the sound is a little bit similar.
Generoso,
unison of 5 voices. And this is like created in the 14th century. And so as you can hear, like my kind of musical references into the art come from a lot of from all over. And then also for the piece song, I was working with a man who's called Dick Page, who is like a artistic director for Shiseido makeup, and is like a mega makeup artist, and he's just like a expert in feminine beauty. So it was all about feminine beauty, this piece. And the books they are reading are all kind of like feminine books by women, like Virginia Woolf and Isak Dinesen, Karnblixen, etc. But there was one one of the books is kind of wrong. There always has to be one wrong thing, and then I had Madame Bovary by Flaubert there also, because that's just like that book really hates women. And because in my art earlier, before this piece, I was working a lot with I've been working a lot with the macho element, like the piece in Venice, Bonnie was talking about a little bit. They were sort of playing the part of the macho painter who just drinks. It was like that was like a childhood dream come true. Like I'm the real artist. I'm just constantly drinking, smoking, and doing oil paintings. Because I thought I was going to be an artist like that, but then things turned out differently. But so I just pretended for 6 months, and then we were 2 males. Like there's a friend of mine, Icelandic performance artist, Páll Björnsson, and we were just there in kind of male misery for 6 months, and it was just terrible. Like because it was like I'm usually I'm often very inspired by kind of the hardcore performance art of the 70s, like Marina Abramovic and Chris Burden, etc. But I kind of like to put it into a more theatrical context. And so, like, if you wanna be a disciple of Marina, you just have to do it. Like we said, we're gonna be drunk the whole time, and we had to be goddamn drunk for 6 months. And it was so, like, the model, Páll hasn't touched a drop since. So it really worked like the therapy in Clockwork Orange, where he just sees so much violence, he stops being violent. And you see, it's all this kind of, and the beers just piled and piled up. And the water flowed in, and there were rats, and Páll got pneumonia, and I got a nervous breakdown. But then the result of that performance was just it's 144 paintings. There's this whole big installation of miserable paintings. I've seen better.
Did you get better?
No, I actually got better. I became a pretty good painter towards the end, I think. And then after that, I've been doing more painting. I kind of like to do this kind of painting stuff, but I'm going all over. Here we were. And because like now I'm working on a new piece which is kind of based on this, on a song called Feminine Ways. I'm gonna just play for you the song, just for fun. Just to try it out. Pink rose in the glittery frost, diamond heart, and the orange red fire. Once again I fall into my feminine ways. Once again I fall into my feminine ways. You protect the world from me, as if I'm the only one who's cruel. You've taken me to the bitter end. Once again I fall into my feminine ways. 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 So this is like this is just to show you like a sketch of a piece, you know. Like the piece starts with a song, very often. Now this song is ready and it's going to become like a video installation. And here we go again to a piece which is it's very, that's also very kind of music related, and that was also in this kind of masculine period, as you can see. And this is me there, and my very frequent collaborator David Thor Jonsson. And I wish you could meet this guy. He's like he makes me become a very kind of, I become like the silent cool type with him. He's just totally crazy, and even more exhibitionistic than me. But he's a great musician, and this there are two pieces in the exhibition I collaborate with him on. That's God and the End. And for the End, then we went up to the Rocky Mountains in Canada, to Banff, and the idea was to make like kind of a landscape like music video installation that's built on the notion that it's like country music, but the method of of the installation is very much Karl-Heinz Stockhausen, who is this German avant-garde composer. He died in 2007, I think. Who is a pioneer in spatial music, creating works where just the music is not just from the stage; it's totally like multi-dimensional. And Stockhausen is also like very important in the history of electronic music, like all his theories, and he was a teacher of Kraftwerk, the German electronic group, and Kraftwerk. Without Kraftwerk, there would be no hip hop. So it's kind of interesting. Like Stockhausen is this like German, totally theoristic avant-garde composer, and without him, there would be no hip hop. Because it was the merge of that electronic thing, and then like the soul music that just created a totally new genre. Sorry, I'm going away from the piece. And then the piece was filmed in 30 degrees frost. So, and it was also like an experiment in playing music in very extreme conditions. And it was just so cold. So because it was so cold, then we had to drink a lot of whiskey when we were doing it. And there again, there's like this macho element of like being like polar explorers, drinking whiskey to keep warm. Like, and the imaginary is very much Caspar David Friedrich. This kind of romantic, like mega scale landscape with like small human figures in it. And there was also a reason I was very fascinated by the Rocky Mountains, and I'm in a lot of my works I'm very fascinated by America some way, and then like the idea that you're in the Alps or you're in the Rocky Mountains, it sort of look the same, but the Rocky Mountains they're like in a way so much more mysterious because all the history that was there has disappeared, and it's just like it feels like it's new, but like all the native history is just gone, and like the names of the mountains there up in Banff. There's one mountain which was called Sleeping Buffalo, beautiful name, and then the railroad men call it Tunnel Mountain. So it's really like so there's and then here comes God, and that's kind of like another fascination with American culture, with old Hollywood, with Frank Sinatra and Nelson Riddle, but then like having that glitzy, beautiful atmosphere become like a frame for this ode to melancholia, which is sorrow conquers happiness. The song is a repetition of those words: sorrow conquers happiness. And these are actually like, again, we come to family. Like these words came from my father when he was drunk on Christmas, 1998. He took me like aside and like, son, I have to tell you something really important. It's sorrow conquers happiness. The piece is called God because it sort of is about it's like a reflection on the sadness of the idea of God, that it may, sorrow conquers happiness, so there is no God, or like God is totally unjust, etc. So it's there's no hope, we're just in an abyss. And that's really like kind of my worldview. I'm like so much in the abyss that I'm just happy. And then here is the man, which like for me is a very, very, very important piece, because it again we're dealing. I'm working with the idea of America, the idea of how America changed the world, and it's like a funny common misunderstanding in America that like the American Constitution was something great, but it's the blues and jazz that's like changed the world, and like I'm always going to concerts, and like once I even went to gospel mass this morning. So I'm like a total music swamp, and I saw this guy in a concert, and he was called Pinto Perkins, and he was 97 years old when I saw him. He was 96 when I saw him play, and I was just blown away to see a man who was just kind of just shaking, and he just was hardly alive. But then he sat on the piano and just became, this sexual energy, this joy of life, this kind of hedonistic power. And this guy was like then the last of the original Delta Blues meant to be alive. The last of the because I think the Delta Blues is it's like super important, because it's the start of global culture, because the first global cultural thing that was created is rock and roll. It's like something that people listen to everywhere in the world. Suddenly the world had like a united taste, and that comes from those guys and girls who took the beat and sin and made it like glorious, and it was just to be with this man for a week was like it was like being with the Dalai Lama of badass. He was just so badass, and yeah, he had been smoking since 1921. And then it comes to the repetition that, like, I was always thinking I want to work with a band, because like artists do some repetition works, but like musicians, they repeat the same stuff over and over and over again. Imagine the Rolling Stones, how many times have they sung Satisfaction, etc. So like shit, they're like, Bruce Nauman, eat your heart out. So this is really like super repetition. So, but then I just saw him and just started thinking about that. This guy had been doing the same riffs, the same songs, the same jokes since 1926, and he was like in dementia, so he was just lost in that world. He was like, if we are lucky enough to become super old and go into dementia, then we become, I always think we could become like this essence of ourselves, like almost like a caricature of who we were. And because I had a lot of friends in my life who were very old, but his dementia was he just could not stop playing the piano, and he could not just stop telling the same jokes. It was always just and he always, when he played a song, he just played a song, and he did like or and then the songs he had been singing, because he was in the Muddy Waters band, and he knew Robert Johnson, and because man who knew Robert Johnson, like living with us, was like crazy. But he, like all his stuff was just very kind of sexual and earthly. Like, yeah, I'm gonna interpret one of his songs just so you understand the lyrics. They're really good. Women call me Pint of Perkins. Some of them call me the grinding man. Women call me Pint of Perkins. Some of them call me the grinding man. But I'm gonna do it easy to you, darling. I'm gonna do it on my easy plan. I got so many customers, takes me all week to get around. I got so many customers, takes me all week to get around. Don't be uneasy on me, darling. You know I won't let you down. Yeah. And in the video you can see he just repeats the same songs, the same riffs, and he always says that the piano is out of tune, but it's not out of tune. He was just kind of he could not really hear what he was playing, and it was hard for him just to feel it. So he just, it's like the classic showbiz excuse, like, the piano is out of tune. It's like, you know, the Tom Waits line, the piano has been drinking, not me. So yeah. And so you gotta check that out. Haven't I been talking really long now? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ragnar. I think there's some questions in the audience. Well, one of the things that I'm interested in, and it's just by accident, I have your show and Ed Ruscha's show, which is opening Thursday night at the same time. And I'd like to say I thought about every reason why they should be together. And there were some things I realized were, made sense, but now seeing the two shows together, I realized this was almost planned to be. Can you just talk a little bit about the relationship between your work and Ruscha?
Well, that is a bit hard, Bonnie. Because I'm just kind of starting to get acquainted with that Ruscha.
Joking.
No, but it's like, but there's like, it's like the obsession with the Americana, and of course, like it's for me, it's like a tourist obsession or like this Fantasyland obsession. And then it's like a local thing. But there are all these similar things. Like I really like the painting that says how you should pronounce Mississippi. And then like Pint of Perkins is singing in the other room about born in Mississippi. so and
then the end.
Then the end, and of course that's the. But because because I was admitting I'm not very, very kind of profoundly didn't know much about Ed Ruscha, but I was always one of my favorite paintings was The End by Ed Ruscha, and kind of therefore I decided to call the piece The End because I just like the coolest title, and yeah.
That's great. So, and you've been sampling Miami's music scene the last few days.
Yeah. So been to a hip hop club and to salsa night, and then this morning it was gospel. Yeah.
And where are you going tonight?
tonight to this gay piano bar. What's it called again?
Were you singing Sinatra and Cole Porter?
Yeah.
So if you haven't had enough of Ragnar, come tonight to hear him play piano. You get to play?
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ragnar, and I would also like to thank the Knight Foundation, which made this exhibition possible through the Knight Foundation Endowment Exhibition Endowment Series at MOCA, and to Mystery Dates. The MOCA Shakers organize mystery dates every year, a great fundraiser, and the money they raised made it possible for us to do this exhibition. So thank you all for coming and enjoy the show.